So I wanted to talk about what my preferred Fallout 5 would look like. What if I had the option to help be part of the design of Fallout 5, what that would look like. I'm going to be playing Fallout 4 just kind of in the background while I talk. Um, Mainly by just talking about my previous experience with the Fallout series. I've always been a huge fan. I've played Fallout 3 probably 4 or 5 times. Probably now 3 or 4 times. I've played Fallout 5. Five. I've played Fallout New Vegas. Um, Enough times that I've done it at least once with every faction. I've played probably over 500 or more hours in Fallout 4. I could probably play this game with my eyes closed at this point. But basically, what I really wanted to talk about was mechanics from old games, or just the way to improve mechanics for the next Fallout game. So, one of the main things I wanted to talk about was the way that dialogue is done, the way that character building is, and like the story mainly. So, starting off with the way that characters are built, I don't like this. I don't like the way that Fallout 4 handles the perks and that there's no skills. I much preferred Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where you had like your small gun skill and your speech skill. I thought that that was just a better system, especially for like an RPG, because this just feels like it's way too dumbed down, and I just don't like it. Also, I don't like how like I could have a laser gun, like a laser rifle, and the damage that it scales off of depends on whether I have commando or gunslinger or rifleman based on just the modifications that are on the gun. I don't like that. So I would prefer if we went back to the old system, the old way of the... Sorry, camera's messing up. I would prefer if we went back to the old way of the skill tree, or of the skills and the perks being completely separate things, where some of the perks were literally just stat boosts, and that's fine. You know, with some of them being stat boosts, or some of them being legitimate upgrades, or legitimate things that completely change the way you can play. Like the nuclear anomaly perk from New Vegas, where it completely changed anything. Like, it changed your character and not just like your stats. So that's one thing. Power armor I really do like a lot in Fallout 4. I like how they made it much more big and tanky. I would like as you can see, my leg and right arm are broken. I wish that instead of it just being empty, how if it would show like ripped up, ripped up metal plates there. Like, you could tell that it was still T-45 that was there. It just got like blown and ripped off and like shot and all that kind of stuff, instead of just being completely blank and empty. Um, and that it maybe it would still have some protection, just nowhere near as much as normal. Like maybe like even less than Raider, or like the same amount as like a combat armor piece, instead of absolutely nothing. Um, so that's one thing I do like about 76 and 4, was the way they handled power armor. Dialogue, as much as I really do like having a voice protagonist, I don't like how it completely limits your ability to roleplay your character much more than than you can in 4. Because like in 4, you can't really be a bad person unless you're playing Nuka World, in which case you can kind of be a bad person, but only really in Nuka World. You can be a sarcastic person in Fallout 4, but you can't be like a bad person. You're just being a sarcastic person. And as much as that's, you know, something that you could build your character to be, I would prefer that I have the option to still be a bad person and a good person and a sarcastic person, instead of just a good person or just a sarcastic person. You know, like Fallout 3 and New Vegas, you could be a completely evil person. You really can't do that in 4. So that's one narrative change. I really did like the New Vegas's system for reputation with all the factions. I thought that was a huge increase, and that like your reputation with the factions was actually like a really nice touch. How you could be friends or foes depending on certain things that happen. You know, depending on like if you've killed them or certain story decisions you've made. That's definitely a really cool concept that I kind of wish they bring back. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about was the way that the story plays out. I feel like in Fallout 4, there's really not a lot of things that you do that completely change the way that you play. You know? Like, there aren't things in the game that you do in Fallout 4 that have a huge impact on story. Like in Fallout New Vegas, you could make different decisions with the different factions and make them affect how the ending feels. And that's not really in Fallout 4. I also just don't like how there's very little like choice involved in your faction line. Like if you play as the Brotherhood of Steel, like if you do their sideline, like their whole like story, there's not really a whole lot of like choice involved. You know, like basically killing Dance or somehow passing all the skill checks to let him survive is your really only choice that you get to make, air quotes by the way, during that. I'm going to check on the camera real quick. You know, you can either choose to kill Dance or not, and that's cool. It's definitely a decent choice, but like Fallout New Vegas has a way better thing that shows like, so when, if you're playing the NCR in New Vegas, the NCR will tell you eventually to go kill the Great Khans. And they'll, if you ask, I'm pretty sure they'll just tell you, no, don't try to make friends with them, kill the Great Khans. And you can completely ignore that and be like, okay, you can kill the Great Khans if you want, but you can tell them, hey, don't work for Caesar. Or you can go past that and say, instead of working for Caesar, work for the NCR. We know that you guys have, you know, bad blood with the NCR, but we're much better than the Legion. And that's, you know, like a legitimate thing you can talk about. And I like that a lot. I don't like how Fallout 4, it's just so much less roleplay. You know what I mean? It's just like the choices that exist feel like they don't have any impact. And like they all lead to the same thing. It's just kind of like they might branch off for like a second, but no matter what, it'll lead to the same thing. Like the Brotherhood, or you know, like I just mentioned with the what are they called? The Khans. The Brotherhood eventually will tell you, go kill the railroad. And you can't be like, no, I don't want to kill the railroad. They're actually not total, you know, they're not bad people. They're just kind of misguided. You can't do that. Like, no matter what, you just have to kill the railroad